Good afternoon and welcome to the June 12th Oregon Tourism Commission meeting. To everyone that has joined us here today in Lakeview and to those joining through the Travel Oregon Industry YouTube channel, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and supplemental material, can be found on the Travel Oregon Industry website if you'd like to follow along. Commissioners, I'd like to acknowledge that in holding a meeting today, we met all public meeting notice requirements provided by state law. And now I'd like to ask Commissioners and Todd to introduce themselves, starting with Commissioner Pendleton.
Thank you. Hello, David Pendleton with America's Hub Tours, and I would just like to say thank you to Lakeview for such a nice, warm welcome from the community.
Good afternoon, Ana Maria Ponzi. Again, wonderful visit earlier in Lakeview, having a wonderful time here. Thanks for the hospitality. I am a former president of Ponzi Vineyards and currently owner of AM Ponzi and Company in the Willamette Valley.
And just harkens back to my 4-H days. So thank you.
And my name is Greg Willits from lovely Sisters, Oregon. I have Five Pine Lodge and Shibui Spa. And I'm grateful to be in my secret backyard spot for fishing, sunstone hunting, lookout tower staying. And thank you for welcoming us to the area.
Hi, my name is Erin Stevenson. I'm from McMinnville, Oregon. I'm the founder and co-owner of the Atticus Hotel, 3rd Street Flats, and our newly opened Cypress Restaurant. And I'm so excited to be here in Lakeview. It is a beautiful place. We had the most beautiful drive yesterday and a great reminder that Oregon is a stunning state with really hospitable, gorgeous little communities nestled throughout. So thanks so much for having us.
Hi, I am Lucinda DeNovo, Vice Chair for the Commission and Director of Sales for the Mill Casino Hotel and RV Park owned by the Coquille Indian Tribe. I too want to reiterate the sentiment of the exceptional hospitality that we've received so far. And I was truly touched with the fact that I think everyone who has facilitated our visit has done so as a volunteer. And that just speaks to this community. So thank you so much.
And I am Richard Boyles, Chair of the Commission and President of Merite Hotel Management Group, 19 hotels in Oregon and Washington. As the other commissioners noted, it's been a great welcome so far, and I am really looking forward to the Dark Sky event that we're planning this evening, hopefully in a cloudless sky. So fingers crossed for that. Todd?
Good afternoon, everyone. Todd Davidson. I'm the CEO at Travel Oregon. You just can't say enough good stuff about Lakeview. It's just so good to be back in Lakeview and Lake County. And every trip I've had here has truly been memorable. And this one is already off to an amazing start. So thanks for the warm welcome.
All right. Well, today's briefing provides us with some extended time to hear from and engage with staff regarding a topic that has been a focus area for Travel Oregon and Oregon's tourism industry. I'll now turn it over to Todd to introduce the topic and the speakers to us.
All right. And I guess our first panel can kind of start working their way up here if they'd like to. I do have a little bit of an intro because I'm super excited about the topic that we have really devoted the briefing to. In the spirit of a briefing, we're focused in on a primary topic, an area that is important to us, and one that came forward to us from one of our local and regional partners. In fact, the very first time I heard about this dark sky idea was from Jessica when she was here at the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. And if you know Jessica, you know that she's just very captivating when she's excited about something, and she was very excited about dark sky. And so it was pretty easy to get swept up in it. And so for us to be able to be here today with panels that are made up of both Travel Oregon staff members, as well as our partners from here in this county and here in this region, is very special. And it also shows just how collaborative the work is that we do at Travel Oregon, the importance of the work that's being done by your staff team at the community level, at the regional level, and how collaborative it is to bring us to this point, and how this particular topic, dark skies, touches on each of those strategies that are nestled under one of the objectives from our 10-year strategic vision of Oregon delivering remarkable experiences. It supports stewardship and development of new and existing experiences and amenities. It stimulates and bolsters regenerative tourism, business, and product development opportunities in urban, rural, tribal lands, providing visitors with immersive Oregon experiences. It reduces high visitation pressures and increases community livability by investing in the development of niche tourism products that are based on growing visitor demand and Oregon's competitive advantage. It provides resources and assistance to tourism-related businesses, organizations, and communities that are experiencing or have experienced crises. And it utilizes partnerships to advance educational and career opportunities to develop, attract, and retain Oregon's tourism workforce. On a personal level, I'll just tell you that being at IPW a couple of weeks ago, which is the largest international trade show that happens in America, and roughly 5,000 folks get together. We had tour operators and media that were there from 60 different countries. The Oregon booth was incredibly busy. And one of the journalists that Petra and I had an opportunity to meet with, who's a primary journalist from the UK, kind of threw out a little bit of a challenge. And it's like, okay, so if I were to come to Oregon and I were to bring my two teenage children with me, what kinds of things could I do? And we started going through some examples, and then Petra said, and they're dark skies, and she lit up. And we motioned to one of our booths. The backdrop in one of our booths was a dark sky shot, and we motioned to that, and she's like, you have this in Oregon. I mean, she knew what it was automatically, and to hear that Oregon had it, and you could find these experiences in different parts of the state, really resonated with her. And then last week, we had the opportunity to sit down with Governor Kotek and talk about our biennial strategic plan. And as you noted in an email that I sent out to the commissioners last week, she's very excited about where we're going. She's excited about our destination stewardship approach. She was very curious about the plan. She asked great questions, had no changes or anything that she was asking us to make in the plan and the strategy. She was just seeking to make sure that she had a very full understanding, and then made sure that it was very clear to me how much the First Lady is excited about dark skies. She really is excited about dark skies. And she's like, you guys could do me a huge favor if you could help me get her into a really great dark sky experience. And I said, I think we know some people that could help you with that. So with that, I'm going to turn you over to some of those people. And I think we're going to start with you, Hillary. So folks, this is Hillary Sager, a member of the Travel Oregon team. Hillary, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, hello, commissioners. Thank you for that great introduction, Todd. I'm super excited to be here in Lakeview with all of you for this briefing on dark sky tourism. It feels, as Todd mentioned, particularly appropriate to do this briefing in Lakeview because Lakeview is a gateway community to what we hope will soon become the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Sanctuary. You're going to hear a little bit more about that project, among others, during today's briefing. And the briefing is brought to you by myself. You'll hear from Katie Clare later from the Global Marketing Department, as well as two colleagues who have been really important partners and advocates for dark skies, Bob Hackett from Travel Southern Oregon and Jill Nishbal from Oregon Parks and Recreation. So just to kick us off, when it comes to dark sky tourism in Oregon, Todd mentioned that the first time he heard about this concept was from Jessica, formerly with the Lakeview Chamber, and Bob was the first person that I ever heard about dark sky tourism from. So I think that's true of many of us in the industry. He's really been an early adopter from the tourism sector of this work. So we thought it'd be super appropriate for Bob to kick off our briefing today. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob first.
Thank you, Commission, for letting us share more about the work we've been doing with dark sky tourism. As was mentioned, I'm Bob Hackett. I'm the Executive Director of Travel Southern Oregon. Lake County is part of our region in Southern Oregon, and so that's how I began to do the work over here following that rural tourism studio you heard about at the fairgrounds today in 2018. As those folks pointed out, they had 3 working groups, and they did that work for 18 months. Dark sky came out of that conversation. Forest Service interested, lots of people interested. But I could see these other groups were so engaged, and there was no reason to bring that forward at that time because there was such good work happening. Come to 2020, then it was time to start getting more engaged and the conversations. And I do want to recognize the work that Hillary has done with the Dark Sky Task Force, Kate Sapel, really in support for that, and Harry and the whole DDEV team supporting the work that we're doing, because it does, as Todd said, it crosses every department. And it's one of the few places where we'll actually talk about conservation work. I know the coast, maybe with food systems, is getting into that space. It's space that we don't always work in. And so in that way, it's very interesting space.
Yeah, I think if you... Should they be showing up, sir? The slides?
There we go. And I'm just going to give you sort of a big picture and close with why is tourism at the table, and then we'll take the conversation from there. But I'm just going to, let's just start at the beginning because we have a big audience out in cyberspace and here. Why are we talking about this? You can see from the 50s to the projection of 2025, that's what the United States looks like from space. The light pollution is really just taking over the planet in so many ways. The global sales element of this, something like 75% of the world, and don't quote me on this, can't see the Milky Way. 80% of people in the world can't see the Milky Way. And so when you start to think about that, the opportunity we have in front of us is enormous. To put that bigger picture in a sort of a geographic context here, this large, the arrows pointing to, you know, what we call the Oregon Outback, and you're really looking at Lake Harney and Malheur counties. And it is a dark, inky blob because there is no artificial light out there. It's a very pristine light situation. So the opportunity was in front of us. What is the opportunity in the tourism world to work with this? While it's flattering to hear the words first, we're not first as a state. And so this is just the bigger picture. The reason we use the phrase dark sky, we talk about dark sky, we could just as easily say night sky tourism, astrotourism. Colorado has chosen stargazing as their way of talking about it. But the reason dark sky is in that phrase is from the International Dark Sky Association. It's a nonprofit group of people dedicated to controlling light pollution around the world. And they came up with a program called the International Dark Sky Places Program. And there are parks, communities, reserves, sanctuaries, and really it's a whole series of qualifications that people apply to the IDA. There's a committee that reviews, you get approved or not, based on light inventory, outreach, education, public support, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so there are, well, this was in 2023, there are 115 dark sky parks. Every state park in Utah is a dark sky park. So, you know, in that sense, we're coming into space that's been created before us by other states. That doesn't mean that's why we're doing this. The opportunity is right in front of us. Yeah, space. Most dark sky places in the U.S. are in the West, though there's some in Michigan and some in the Katahdin Woods in Maine is a dark sky place. But this is just to take you through what's our competitor set here? And this is friendly competition, but this is Utah really going deep on that. Central Idaho, the Central Idaho Reserve includes the community of Ketchum and Sun Valley, in addition to the Sawtooth and all that work with the Forest Service that they've done there. The Colorado Plateau, which would be that whole area, Flagstaff up into Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. Very, very active. And you'll see at the end of this, they've done some research which puts the why into why we're doing this. Great Basin National Park, not terribly far from here. They are a dark sky park as well. There's a Basin and Range Dark Sky Collective that really is more of a group of people in that Great Basin area, and we are in the Great Basin, by the way. We're not in Kansas anymore. You know, it's different, and but this is all great, but why is tourism at the table when we're talking about light pollution, when we're talking about light inventories and all that kind of thing, aside from it being the right thing to do? And the Colorado Plateau group has done some of the economic impact stuff. So from 2019, in the next 10 years, they're expecting something like, almost $6 billion to be spent in the Colorado Plateau from people doing night sky activities. Now, they have Grand Canyon National Park, they have Zion Park. There's a lot of activity there, but it's not, there's a lot of impact that's happening. Additionally, visitors who are engaged in night sky tourism spend 3 times as much money in your community as people who are not. And part of it's of course, they have to spend the night. Otherwise, how are you going to do it? And then you come with dinner, and it comes with breakfast. And so communities who find a way to leverage the economic opportunity, if we can help build it, this is the kind of upside that communities can look to engage with, which is a 3-to-1 investment from visitors in their community doing this work. So that's why we're at the table, particularly in our deeply rural areas.
Thank you, Bob, for doing an excellent job as usual in sharing the why behind this work. Before I dive into additional Travel Oregon whys, I did want to just mention that I'm really proud of the work that Travel Oregon has been doing in response to this rising interest in dark sky tourism. We've been really engaged with our industry partners, with agency partners like those we have here at the table with us, and are just working together to figure out how do we take advantage of this interest we're seeing from visitors and also from the media around dark sky tourism. I really can't emphasize enough the amazing cross-functional way that this work has come together in a relatively short period of time. I think it's truly been a case study in the power of both internal and external alignment in developing new visitor experience areas. So that's why I'm so proud of it. But to kick us off, Todd kind of hit on a lot of these points already, but building on what he and Bob have already shared, I did want to emphasize why dark sky visitor experiences align so well with Travel Oregon's 10-year strategic vision. As well as our state's strongest tourism lures, which include, scenic drives, outdoor recreation, and even agritourism. Obviously, by nature of these experiences taking place at night, they drive extended trips and overnight stays. There also extends seasonal dispersion. You can have great dark sky experiences year-round, especially in areas with more temperate climates, like down here in Lakeview, with clearer skies, I should say. And again, the conservation values, the preservation of dark skies that's celebrated by dark sky tourism is rooted in these conservation principles, and ultimately encourage the type of responsible and respectful visitation that we hope to see here in Oregon. Reach over. So as this is a new area of focus for Travel Oregon, it's been really important to lean on our partners along the way, from astronomers and other dark sky advocates. Did I turn this off? Okay. Astronomers and other dark sky advocates to learn about the negative effects of light pollution and how to identify places in Oregon that are particularly well suited for this type of experience. So through our partnership with Travel Southern Oregon, as well as Eastern Oregon Visitors Association, we came to meet Dawn Nilsson, who's a dark sky expert, and we were able to bring her on as a consultant to Travel Oregon for our dark sky work. So Dawn helped us create a dark sky tourism toolkit to share with our partners what we've learned about all the benefits of preserving dark skies, including how to curb light pollution and the types of dark sky activities and experiences that are available in the state. So the toolkit, we have it available on our industry website, and we also offer on-call technical assistance through Dawn to members of the industry and really anyone who's seeking more information about dark sky tourism or support for a specific dark sky project that they're working on. So with these technical resources in place, and this increased kind of connectivity starting to take root across the state, we saw an opportunity to convene a short-term collaborative statewide working group that was really meant to inform and align our efforts to protect, sustain, and enhance Oregon's dark sky visitor experience with the hopes of elevating Oregon as a dark sky destination. So Travel Oregon played the role of convener, and we extended targeted invitations to partners who we found would be crucial for the work. So that included Oregon Department of Parks and Recreation, Oregon Caves National Monument. We had 5 of the 7 RDMOs participate in the work group, as well as representatives of both the Oregon chapter of the International Dark Sky Association and Rose City Astronomers. So over the course of the 6-month period that the work group met, it really became very clear how critical that combined expertise would be in achieving our goals. So we had the goals of, we set out to achieve the following tasks that are up on the screen, including developing a statewide SWOT analysis for dark sky tourism in Oregon. We conducted an inventory process for existing dark sky destinations and assets in Oregon, as well as the supporting infrastructure for those assets. In that process, we identified gap areas in existing dark sky destinations and opportunities for future development. And all of this led to the creation of a project pipeline for dark sky tourism projects across the state. And we really leaned into prioritizing short-term statewide projects that we could really get done right away, and then identifying the resources to support those projects. So after that SWOT analysis was complete, the work group dove into creating an inventory of the places that could currently be considered dark sky destinations. So this included cataloging the infrastructure and programming in place. And this map is a visualization of that inventory. So as you can see, there's a ton of existing dark sky destinations in the state. This includes planetariums, observatories, private resorts and businesses that have hosted star parties, including wineries, as well as national parks and monuments, state parks, other public lands, and even communities that boast exceptionally dark skies. So after the inventory process was completed, we did an additional exercise as a work group, which is represented in those colors you see on the map, to kind of identify which destinations were also ready to be marketed. Because as we know, many of these places, for various reasons, may not be quite ready to be shouted from the rooftops, even though they do have a dark sky experience in place. So to Bob's earlier point, there is the International Dark Sky Places program. And as you just saw, there's lots of destinations in Oregon that could be considered dark sky places, but there is value in also pursuing this official certification of an international dark sky place. The program does kind of serve as a travel bucket list for dark sky enthusiasts by providing certain guarantees about the quality of stargazing and the overall experience in those destinations. So it's something we're interested in growing in Oregon, and work is well underway to pursue additional dark sky place designations across the state, and there's even more opportunity existing beyond the applications that are already active, which you can see what those are on the screen. So the work group really wanted to build upon that momentum that already exists. So we went ahead and went through an exercise to identify the most promising locations for potential future international dark sky place designation in the state. Some of the factors that we considered included community and land manager interest, capacity, and of course, whether the skies were dark enough to qualify. So this is the list that we came up with. You'll see most of the regions are represented, and many of the places that were identified are properties managed by Oregon Parks and Recreation, which is why we were so lucky to have Jill's participation in the work group and to have her here today to share with us more about what OPRD has been doing in the dark sky arena as a key agency, a partner. So I'm going to pass it over to you next, Joe.
Well, thanks again for asking me to come along. It's a pleasure, and I think I've been to Lakeview one time before and was like, oh, I need to return here, and I haven't done it yet, so appreciate the invite. So it's really because of that one Lone Ranger, I guess I can say, at Prineville back in 2020, who started working on the certification application at Prineville for designation. And I think he worked, well, it's probably started on it in 2019, because I think it took a couple of years to fill out the application. Well, in May of 2021, we finally got the designation as the first Oregon or International Dark Sky Park. And I was just there last week, actually, and I noticed they have a big sign on the entrance now, International Dark Sky Park, so that's exciting. But that kind of started a lot of momentum within the state agency, with a lot of interest in people asking questions, and then, you know, just a lot of people expressing interest in perhaps doing that. I represent the mountain region of our park system, which is all of southern, central, and eastern Oregon. So we easily have a lot of more rural parks that have very dark skies. And so we have a lot of management that's interested in that. And in terms of statewide system, we really have realized that not only do we have, you know, dark skies in our campground parks, but over some of our day use areas too. But we also didn't want to attract a whole bunch of people coming out to day use areas at night when they're close to the public. So we have more discussion, and maybe there's opportunities for a special event at a place like that. And at this point, because our work group just ended at the beginning of June, I haven't even had a chance to go to our decision makers with a summary of what we've been doing. But what I'm planning on doing is writing up a little summary and then going to our leadership team and talking about, you know, sort of how do we want to take this on? We need to work with our communications to figure out the messaging we want, and maybe trying to really encourage better dark sky etiquette with our campers and things like that. So you can see this is just kind of an overlay of where the OPRD properties are, both camping. This is in particular where our campgrounds are that have the darkest places. And you can see, obviously, it's a no-brainer to see that really Southeast Oregon, Northeast Oregon is where we have a lot of potential. But then you can see those little pockets elsewhere throughout the state. So again, Prineville is a place that is gorgeous, and we have a lot of campground hosts, and that's one of the roles that I have been working with the last 20 years, is working with our volunteer program. And so I came across a couple of professional photographers, night sky photographers, and they have so far worked at Prineville, Wallowa Lake, and Cottonwood as hosts, while they have been taking some fantastic photos for us. So here's one of them. But like Bob mentioned, in terms of International Dark Sky Association and the application for certification, it is pretty rigorous. Everything from, like he said, the community support and making sure that we have a plan for education, but also what are we going to do to mitigate the lights we have in the campground, and you know, really it's that happy place between making people feel comfortable and safe, and then preserving the dark night sky. And we have a great location there at Prineville, just because of it being surrounded by all the hills around there, and pretty much looking south and east, nothing out there. So it's beautiful. In terms of the other, I think it was on the other slides, we have Cottonwood Canyon, who already has their application in, and they're waiting for approval on that. Wallowa Lake, that picture on the right, it was taken at Wallowa Lake, and that's obviously up in Northeast Oregon, and they've been working on their application, and so they're halfway involved with that. Cape Blanco Management Unit down on the South Coast has been taking sky quality measurements and figuring out what they're going to do, but they're excited about moving forward with their application. And then in particular, Stubbs Stewart State Park up there west of Portland, far enough away from the city where they have some pretty dark night skies, and they have a number of star parties going on. So speaking of star parties, we have some locations where we gather people together and partner with OMSI and RCA, Rose City Astronomers, and other groups like the Eugene Astronomical Society. And this summer we have a whole bunch of different star parties being offered, and the Rangers are excited about that. And so speaking, I made several copies of all the star parties that are happening this summer. I can pass that out for you. I hope that you'll make one or more of them. And then speaking of Rangers, whoops, did I go the wrong direction? I sure did. There we go. Speaking of Rangers, we hosted our first Ranger training back in late April at Cottonwood Canyon Experience Center. And it's a great location, very dark. We happened to get rain one day, one of the nights, which was kind of unusual, but we hosted, I think we had 21 Rangers at the training and support from several resource people. And so we just kind of got everybody familiar with how to set up a telescope and communicate some messages to the public and get them more comfortable around the subject matter. And it's just something we want to keep repeating and maybe expanding out and working with our partners to provide training for other providers. So that's pretty much what I have for you.
And I think we're going to pass it over to Bob next to share about some of the work that he's been involved in here in Southern Oregon.
Yep, and then we'll take questions after, right? So thank you, Jill. I'm sharing this aspirational logo here, which was, sort of a little trepidation creating a logo for something that doesn't exist yet, but it needs to be on the application to the IDA to show them that we're visualizing this and that this is what we believe in. Heart Mountain and an antelope behind it. The application, and I'm just going to take you very quickly at a super high level about what this application process is like, because it's a little different out here. And so you'll be able to see that. Everything I'm going to share, I just want to point out, this is work that I've done with my dear colleague, Dawn Nilsson. So Dawn has been with me, doing all this work all along the way. I thought there was some text here. Oh, it's tricky. And so a nomination component, when you're going to put something in front of the International Dark Sky Association Review Committee, these are the key components. You have to do a lighting inventory. So, as Jill was referring to that, what it means is that you need to actually, what are the lights that are in the place you're talking about? If it's Cottonwood Canyon State Park, we have 17 lights. 14 of them are non-conforming, 3 of them are conforming. You need to get to 67% to put it across to get provisional, get to 90, and then get to 100 over a period of 10 years. Okay, thank you. You need to actually prove you have a dark sky. You can't just say you have a dark sky. So this is science. You have to actually, there are sky quality meters, there are spectrometers, there are handhelds, they're stationary, but you need to actually document over a period of a year through a series of seasons that you actually are on the Bortle scale dark enough. And I'm not a scientist. I've learned a certain amount of science. I think for its sanctuary, you need to be at 21.5 Bortles or higher, which is darker. And we are consistently up around that 21.9. And it's exponential like earthquakes. So it's not just a little darker, it's a lot darker. And so, but you have to prove it. And so I've been personally monitoring 3 sky quality meters for 3 years, every 3 months, downloading data, sending it to the IDA, because you have to prove it. And you need some documentation. You need a light management plan. What is that? That's saying, we are Oregon Parks and Recs. We adopt this light management plan for this piece of land. You'll see how in the Outback situation, that is a different beast, and it's been a lot more complicated. And then you need an outreach plan and materials, because the IDA is all about communication, about community engagement. The point is to raise consciousness about light pollution from the IDA's perspective, and we get on board with that. And then letters of support from all the people who are engaged. The way we did it was we had a very big 90-member project team from across all 3 counties, business people, just a wide variety of at-large people that we had regular sort of meetings with to find out who were the hand raisers, who in this large area was going to be engaged and on board with trying to push this project forward in their communities. We're talking French Glen, Burns, Paisley, Ontario, very large area. The next group that we spent a lot more time with was the 16-member steering committee. And once you see the overlay of the ownership of the area that we're talking about, state parks, we don't have any state parks here. And so I was not able to work with Jill on this project. We have Chandler Wayside, I think, is the only. So it's an area that has no state parks. And so it's all federal and state lands from other departments.
Goose Lake, south of here.
Goose Lake, okay, yeah. So this particular steering committee was a super important group. Then you also have to do the GIS mapping. Harney County offered that pro bono for us to work with them, because GIS for you people, it's a special thing. You have to have a license. It's not like everybody can do that. What the GIS maps kick out is who actually owns land, who you're talking to. And so the steering committee, in looking at what we were calling an Outback Dark Sky Sanctuary, what we were hearing was bigger is better. So the reason what I'm going to show you is so large is it's not vanity. It's actually land managers wanted it bigger to reduce the impact on their particular place, particularly wildlife refuges, Hart Mountain, Malheur Wildlife Refuge. They don't want everybody coming just to Hart Mountain to go do the dark skies. It's too much. It's not what their mission is. It's not what they're about. But they're collaborative partners on board. And so the message was bigger's better for us. And so that meant having a much bigger piece of the pie. And so this is what ends up looking like the boundaries of what is being proposed as the Outback Dark Sky Sanctuary. Everything within that red line is hitting that darkness criteria. Where we have our event this evening will be actually in the boundary, but what you're looking at is something along the U.S. Forest Service line, just up here on the hills behind town, all along the BLM lines to Summer Lake, really following a lot of BLM lines and roads, and then you've got the Idaho border and then the Nevada border all the way over to here. That's 11.5 million acres. If we get this through, it will be the largest dark sky sanctuary in the world. And it requires so many people to be involved to help this happen. And so lighting retrofit plans. Oh, okay. I think I maybe dropped out a slide. On this one, I just wanted to point out the key landowners. Like if you own a Crater Lake National Park wants to become a dark sky park. If Crater Lake Park decides to do something with their lights, they're the only ones deciding to do that. They have the resource, the management team, the educational ability to do that, and then go ahead and do it. BLM owns 85% of the land out here in 3 districts. So not just one district manager, the Lakeview district manager, the Burns district manager, the Vail district manager, 2 national wildlife refuges, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife up at Summer Lake, the counties own land out there, Department of State lands and the range lands that are out there all have to come on board for this to be successful and sign a letter of support from their agency adopting the light management plan. And I am happy to say, as of last week, we've gotten the U.S. Forest Service to come on. We've gotten Lake County, thank you, Lake County Commissioners, adopted the light management resolution. Malheur Wildlife Refuge, Hart Mountain Wildlife Refuge just came in at the end of last week. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife up at Summer Lake is just about to come on. The Oregon Department of State Lands is going to come on. The biggest challenge is actually, from a light perspective, is ODOT. Now, a lot of that is work necessary. Some of it is just old and needs attention. But even that, we've been having good conversations with ODOT to get ODOT to come on board and say, yep, we're ready to sign this. And so that just gives you a sort of a scope of how many people need to, for their agency, sign on to a light management plan that is shared by all. And so we are looking to put, to go up here to complete this by the end of this summer. So Dawn is really hoping to push ahead a nomination application for the art sanctuary probably by the end of July to the International Dark Sky Association. They are very supportive. We've had conversations with them. I feel like we have a partner. I think everyone wants the same thing, and the question is just going to be how to get that to happen. Our engagement with this is going to be ongoing because, so yes, they say yes, then what? Well, you drove in from Portland. You'd be nice to have a sign that said you're entering the Outback Dark Sky Sanctuary, right, from every direction. All of that kind of work still needs to be done. So we still have a lot of work to do, but this has been the main thrust of what we've been up to. If you want to follow it, there's a Facebook page from the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network. Just if you want to follow it on Facebook, Dawn's very active, and you can stay in touch with what we're doing. So that's just a super quick snapshot of 4 years of work.
Thank you, Bob and Jill. I think it's really interesting in dark sky tourism and these designation efforts, from the immense complexity that Bob and Dawn are tackling in the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Sanctuary effort, to the more, streamlined, easier ways to designate state parks and national parks that do have, a single land management agency. There really is a wide spectrum, which is in part what makes the work so interesting. And I think we haven't really done and I'll take responsibility for that, a great job in emphasizing all of the different kind of dark sky experience opportunities that don't necessarily involve stargazing. So I should just mention that there's also tons of opportunities around just activities that happen in the dark outside. So you could have nighttime snowshoeing tours, which maybe some of you did at GovCon a couple of years ago. Nighttime, kayaking and canoeing. You can also go on bat walks and just kind of get in touch with the nocturnal wildlife that we have in the state. So there really is a lot that you can do. Night sky photography was mentioned, so I did want to make sure that we didn't miss calling that out. And now I just, to turn to this slide, I did just want to wrap up kind of where the Dark Sky Tourism Work Group ended up after our short-term 6-month engagement. We did identify some priority projects that really all tied back to that important goal of industry awareness that I think has been mentioned by all of us already. We identified these 3 projects that are on your screen, and they all are, really important ways to move this work forward and engage with both the industry and visitors on this topic. So the specific projects that came out of the work group that we will be moving forward over the next several months include Dark Sky Sessions at the 2023 Oregon Outdoor Recreation Summit that will be held in Coos Bay in November. So we submitted a variety of sessions to engage that sector of the industry. And so we'll be doing a case study session that will touch on some of the projects you heard about today, an infield workshop to learn how to conduct a dark sky friendly lighting inventory, as well as potentially a guided night walk to experience that nocturnal wildlife that I just mentioned. So we'll also be creating, and Travel Oregon is going to lead this one, creating a Dark Sky 101 printed piece for a consumer audience. So this is something that we hope to have in our welcome centers, and RDMOs will be encouraged to distribute in their regions to really drive that visitor education around both, hey, you can do this while you're here, and also here's how to do it respectfully, some of the etiquette principles, and linking out to deeper content on traveloregon.com as well. And then importantly, we will be launching an action team to support a statewide industry communications and outreach strategy. So that will include organizing for strategic alignment around educational presentations to local chambers of commerce and other community leaders around the value of dark sky tourism, and continuing to develop dark sky education and awareness trainings and resources that are catered to tourism businesses, especially. So we were able to offer a dark sky tour product exploratory session for tour guides and outfitters participating in our Y Guides program. We offered that this spring, and we thought it was really successful. It's something we'd love to build on, and also reaching out to other types of tourism businesses and gateway communities and other dark sky places. So, and then beyond these short-term projects, many other projects were surfaced by the work group and flagged for kind of further exploration or potential action team formation around. So some of those are listed on the screen, things like the idea of a digital dark sky GIS map for visitors, continuing to explore those international dark sky place opportunities, maybe a technical assistance program for lighting inventories specifically, which can be very tricky to pull off. And then, of course, continued dark sky itinerary development, because there's so much opportunity around that. So that concludes kind of the dark sky development portion of this presentation. So we're going to take some questions while Jill and Bob are up here with me about anything that you've heard from us before Katie comes up to share from the marketing communications point of view. David?
Aaron.
Oh, sorry. David, you want to go? Go ahead. We had two people called on at once.
Flip a coin. Please go right ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go. First of all, wow, this is a huge collaborative effort, and bringing so many different jurisdictions together and partners around one common task, I know is a huge lift. And kudos to all of you for bringing the right people to the table to share that common vision, because I know that's a huge amount of work. I have a question, and it's really around lifting up rural communities. I've been on the commission long enough now. I'm always getting excited about how do we use tourism to lift up rural communities, and how do we create entrepreneurs, give entrepreneurs opportunities, right? And so it seems like there's a natural tension between having really dark skies and having towns, right? Towns where people are living, where there's lodging opportunities, where there's guides. So I would assume that when we're looking at 3 times more spend, right, from somebody here who's doing dark sky tourism, that requires an overnight spend to do that. So then it seems like the overall trajectory then would be to have people stay in towns, for example, and then go out to experience the night sky. And if that's the case, then it's wonderful to see you putting in that effort and energy around creating guides, because that seems like a very important part of this overall equation to really make this work for communities as economic development. And I note that you're training existing tour operators, but Airbnb experiences have really opened the doors for a lot of people, especially in our small rural communities, to maybe don't have the opportunity or the funding up front to start up a company or an existing, guided organization. But would there be opportunities, do you think, to go out into the smaller communities that are near these dark sky areas, and rather than providing training just for people who are already in the industry, offer training workshops in these communities to help local people become really well educated and get up to the level where then they could start their own business to go out and lead tours of their own communities or areas around their own communities, and have some, additional economic development and lift for community members who happen to live at least adjacent to these areas. Is that something that your team discussed at all, or what might that look like on an entrepreneurial level?
Yeah, I really appreciate that comment. I think it's spot on. We definitely had these conversations, and I can kind of kick us off and maybe we can tag team a response. But first of all, I think, it's extremely important that we engage. I guess I refer to them as gateway communities to some of these darker places. There are communities that themselves are dark enough to be, there's a designation within the International Dark Sky Association, or their Places program, for dark sky communities. So it's different types of darkness, of course, because you're going to have street lamps, but there are things you can do within a community to reduce your light pollution and qualify as a dark sky place as a community, which is really cool. But for other communities that maybe aren't interested in that and are positioned to be a gateway, I think we have a role as tourism to very clearly communicate that this is not something that's just for, people in adventure vans to go out and be, totally self-reliant. Like, we want to really emphasize the value of staying in these special rural communities and, checking out those businesses. And that will be part of the narrative that we will be crafting into our itineraries, and the way that we present like trip ideas that are related to dark skies is, this is one component of your stay. I think Katie will also address some of this in her remarks. But anything else that you all wanted to share?
No, well, the only thing that when I was looking at the map and thinking about French Glen Hotel, for example, right now we're looking for a new concessionaire to take that on. But I think we've been talking with Dawn about having that be a demonstration site for like how there would be a lighting display there, so that people would understand, what kinds of lights qualify, and why good, why bad. And so just the fact that that's a little hotel within the community is a good thing, and close enough to Burns where people will get goods on the way down. So I think it has a lot of potential for these multiple day adventures.
One other thought I had is related to, the Airbnb experiences angle. That's not something that we've explored yet, but I have noticed that a lot of these star parties that happen that are, hosted by wineries and very much in the tourism realm are often provided on a volunteer basis by like the Rose City Astronomers, and other groups. And this is a question I've asked Dawn, which is, why aren't you charging for these services? Like, this is a business opportunity, and Dawn definitely sees that. And I think Airbnb experiences might be a great sort of entry point for more of those folks who have that specialized knowledge to, become entrepreneurs and not just do it kind of in their spare time on a volunteer basis.
And is there an opportunity for Travel Oregon to provide the education to people in these gateway communities, so then they would have the knowledge to go ahead and start leading their own, experience and again, creating more economic development opportunities for the people living in those towns?
Definitely. I think that's the goal of that kind of outreach and communication strategy. That was one of the projects that came out of the work group, is really focusing on how are we engaging communities around these opportunities and doing that education piece.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, great. Can we do that? Let's do it.
It's kind of what I was going to touch on last. Thank you. Great presentation. I just have 3 things I want to say. First of all, Primeville. I've had the opportunity, this may not be the thing to say, but to actually go up twice, up the Crooked River just before the dam, and a group of us would hike up to the Big Rock to see the dark skies at night. Beautiful. The other thing is, you mentioned the IDA in terms of that certificate. Is that IDA certificate a part of the United Nations Global Standards, which has 17 priorities? Because it seemed like to me you hit, off the top of my head, at least 15 of those. Is it one of the same, or is that the next level to get to that piece that really has a major impact on the international market? And my second question is, additional resources. I mean, you share what you shared, but from a community standpoint, like Lakeview and others, what additional resources are needed to help them in terms of support? Because I didn't hear you say that during this cycle of going through the study and getting to the point where you're at today, that the community involvement was there at the table at the very beginning. So how do we make that happen so it's not, we're not presenting to them, but they're part of the process, okay? And the last thing is, sounds like a great opportunity to the Y-Guide program, which I love. I don't know how many current dark sky operators there may be there. I'm curious to find out. But would there be opportunities to create some additional packages for your, whether it be your dry market, your tour operators, and or that local piece within a 50-mile radius or whatever that comes out that can utilize those packages that would have an impact on multiple regions? Because I think of the airports, majority of them will probably come in from different parts of, whether it be Medford to Portland to Bend, so it's going to have a domino effect.
Yeah, a lot there. I'll start with Y Guides because we have had some exciting connectivity already with that program. So I've been working really closely with Gabi Duarte on it and on kind of connecting Dark Skies and the Y Guides program. And they actually updated the registry before opening it this last round to include a question about dark sky tours, so that we have captured from those latest guides, and existing guides have had the opportunity to kind of update their registration to give us this information as well, about, because we were really desperate to know how many guides we had offering dark sky experiences and tours already. And we do have a number of them. I can't tell you the exact number off the top of my head, but we are tracking that and kind of looking to see how do we continue to serve those guides to see, are you interested in growing those offerings? And then bring along the guides who have indicated that they're interested in adding dark sky product in the future, but are not currently offering that. As to I don't know if you have anything you want to share, Bob, about community, bringing the community along in the work you've done on the Outback.
Thank you for that. My impression is that, I've spent a lot of time in the communities doing, like the Alger Theater, we took that over and did a showing of Saving the Dark, which is a IDA film. And, we had, 60, 70 people come out from the community to see that movie, and had a dark sky event after that. In the life cycle of a project like this, the community engagement up front is just imperative, because you need to know that there's support in the community for anything that we do in destination development. The second part then becomes a little bit more technical of okay, now that we think there's support and agencies want to see support, you can show their support, then you have to do the actual technical development, and then finish the third thing, which is really the project management to get it across the finish line. Because my observation has been that we really need to get something across the line here in the Outback, and we need to do it sooner than later, because at a certain point people get tired of talking, and so the community is there and ready to go, but it's actually deep work with BLM district managers that puts together the project, that then everybody, once it gets approved, then we have something completely shared to talk about and celebrate. And that's almost like community engagement 2.0, where everyone has something they can actually get behind. And because if we don't deliver, then that's its own problem. And the delivery has a lot of technical aspects to it. To the point for the community engagement, it's always been important. In every library, Lake County, Harney County, Malheur County, there's a night sky adventure kit that has one of those sky quality meters in it. a star guide, a red flashlight. Anybody who's going camping, and the libraries help us get this word out, can just check this out like they're checking out a book and do citizen science, on their camping trip. That's just an example of the kind of thing we've been doing for years on that. And so the training that everyone is, I think the way that we're seeing this is Travel Oregon and Travel Southern Oregon going into community. We're really approaching it, I think, to really connect with chambers, with DMOs in areas, because if they need to be fluent in the opportunity in their community to help the entrepreneurs in their community, because as you know, entrepreneurship in communities goes really deep, and not everybody shows up at every meeting all the time. And I don't live here. Hillary doesn't live here. But the Lake County Chamber does live here. And so I think we're really trying to catalyze local DMOs, and that's why the toolkit is so important, to have all of those tools that communities can lean in the way that makes sense to them.
Commissioners, if I may, I'm going to pause the Q&A with this panel, and so we have an opportunity to hear from Katie also, and then we can, with the time remaining, we can open it up for Q&A for both groups. And I also know that, correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, are you joining us tonight?
I'm just learning about it. So.
Okay. So Jill's the only one I can't speak for, but I believe otherwise everybody else is going to be with us for the balance of our day today. So opportunities for additional Q&A. I'm sorry?
So they'll have an opportunity to answer.
And you can think of more
question
before we get to dinner as well. And bring,
first
no,
one.
I'm kidding, David.
There is no hook, as far as I know, from IDA to the UN Sustainable Goals.
Yeah. Agreed. None that I'm aware of either, Bob. I was thinking about that as well. Okay. Thank you. Well, yeah, but don't leave, because there may be some additional questions, and if as time remains, I'd love to be able to engage everybody. So thank you. Great presentation, you guys. Thank you. All right, Katie.
Hello, everyone. I feel like I'm cutting off questions for a lot of really great work, and so I'll go relatively quick. And I want to echo what Hillary said. I feel like I have the easiest part up here today because of all of the development work that has been done and a lot of really strong collaborative work from Hillary in the destination development and our regional teams. But also, I had flashbacks to the first time that Bob told me, like, this is the thing, Katie. This is the thing. And I can still remember we were already on Zoom. So thank you to everyone that's been involved. And I just want to walk through how we're approaching this from the consumer marketing aspect and a lot of the great wins that we've already had for communications, because as you can see throughout all marketing and advertising in the West, Dark Skies is starting to have a larger share of voice. And so what you'll hear us talk about today is the wins that we've been able to have with Oregon's competitive advantage, because while there are the designations that you've been hearing about as well, I think we all kind of collectively feel that all dark skies are a great selling point, and we have so many throughout the entire state. So while I cannot wait to have our amazing media event when we finally get the sanctuary designated, we have a lot of great things that are already happening, so not just waiting for that. One of those things is, if you can look at the screen, we feel like we've had a really long runway to prepare for this, and it's because of a lot of this foundational work. So as we enter the consumer space, we're able to have really solid photography and brand assets available, so that when we get calls from Outside Magazine and others asking about great dark sky places, we have things we can send off, which is always such a great feeling to have. This is just one of the photos. We have a couple different collections, including some branded campaign assets that I'll tease a little bit at the end. So we've been developing our dark sky consumer content, which also has been hand in hand with the development of eclipse content as we prepare for the annular solar eclipse that's going to happen this October. A lot of the messaging has a lot of overlap. And then it has a lot of the same responsible messages, and then also like being prepared for areas where you have dark skies, but also like what to do during the day. So what you can see here is we have like these great pristine starry sky stories. And then within most of these is ways to spend the day. So when you're talking about like the economic impact for rural communities, like that's really important for us. It's like, don't just like hang out and show up at nighttime, like spend money during the day, leave it behind. And then also you can see here, we have from the Dark Sky Work Group, we're able to get some great, like if you go management tips, which to be really honest with you, feels so good to be entering into this niche with all of this work done. And it's like this just really does feel like a great example. So here's just another example. As a marketer, like Dark Sky content does real well on the socials. So we continue to push this. You can see just clicking through to like, we had International Dark Sky Week in April that we were able to push. I'll show you some results from our communications efforts on the next slide. You'll see here, like just going, driving to those stories, and then also in feed, sharing some of those management, as well as the beautiful photos to really inspire people and let them know like Oregon is the place to experience dark skies, because our competitive set of like Idaho, Utah, like Nevada, they're heavy in this space. And so we are going to be doing a lot of pushing, especially as we get more places that do have the designation, just really showing like, but the place to do it is in Oregon. During International Dark Skies Week, which was April 15th to 22nd, I believe, we put together a press release and pushed that out that had information about dark skies, and also started to share information about the upcoming eclipse. As we know, I thought we were only really going to have one big eclipse in a lifetime in 2017, but we have another one this October. And so we have kind of a good toolkit, which includes preparing people with messages about traveling to rural areas and how they can have a positive economic impact. So we pushed that press release out in April, preparing for International Dark Sky Week, and we had a ton of pickup. So we got a lot of great regional coverage. We had over 13 stories done within a week, but not just local and regional coverage like Oregon Live, but you can see here we got like Outside Mag and other great publications. I did want to share too just some images from IPW. So this is just fun to see, and that's how we're bringing it to life across global sales too, just continuing to drive that competitive advantage. This was the staircase, so not just in the booth, but everybody that was at the show was able to see some of these images. And again, it's why like being able to prepare and have branded assets ready to go is really important. So sharing once again, we have this, making sure that we have all of our communications assets dialed. Hillary touched on it earlier. We're just continue to push these toolkits so that we share the information as often as we can. And then just continuing to speed things along. But I wanted to this is actually an image that's, to my deep shame, it's not the final edited image, but wanted to make sure that you all saw it. This is going to be one of our key visuals from our upcoming advertising campaign, Travel Oregon with Travel Oregon, which is the Dark Sky Guided Experience. So we were able to partner with Oregon Parks and Recreation to have one of the interpretive experiences is with Oregon State Parks at Prineville State Park. It's about 3 nights a week during the summer. Most weeks during the summer, they have a complimentary experience that if you go to the park, they'll take you out and show you dark skies, which we think is super important, as you all were already picking up on. To have a guide show you like what you're looking at makes the experience incredible. So one of our sidekicks and characters within the advertising campaign is Dark Sky, which will allow us to have a platform to speak about this niche and opportunity for years to come, and we're really excited. So this is one of the images from that shoot. It's not fully done yet, and will continue to get better. I just really love it. I think it's really beautiful. You can see here some things that are really subtle, but like there's snow on the ground, and you can see like the Oregon State Parks logo, like just making sure some of those small things are included to show like this helps us with seasonality a lot. We heard even when we were talking with George, who's a ranger that's featured in this image, like he was like, oh yeah, our seasonality at Prineville is totally pushing out because you can do dark skies all year round. So we're really excited. I feel like this is a softball in terms of marketing that's been served up to us, and we just keep having great things come our way, and we're really excited.
All right. Thanks, Katie. All right. Commissioners, happy to open it up for questions that you may have for Katie, as well as for Jill and for Bob and for Hillary. Other questions you may have. Mr. Youngblood.
Katie, as it relates to marketing, when you mentioned the value of dark sky content relative to social media, I have to believe, especially looking back to one of Hillary's first slides showing the difference between 1950, the progression of the dark skies impact from 1950 until today, there has to be a significant portion of Generation Z, as weird as this is to say, that's never seen the sky. I mean, the same way many of us can think back 40 and 50 years and what it was like to lay on our back and stare at the sky in ways that feels harder to do now. The same way 40 years ago, my dad used to lament the fact that you can't get a good tomato anymore. The tomatoes taste like garbage now. It is part of the impact, the fact that we have this young, thirsty generation that hasn't had the same level of exposure that many of us have had to pristine skies at night?
You know, I don't think we've considered it like that, but it's definitely an opportunity, and it's something that I think we'll continue to see. And I think it's when we look at who our Gen Z traveler is, like we just did a really big profile on TikTok of like who are engaging on that platform and why. And like it just continues to drive back to those, like really, they're looking for experiences when they travel, right? And it's continuing to show that. So actually it's a great way to look at it, and something that we'll continue to emphasize. Because I think when we talk about it internally too, even within the Portland area, which might have the most light density within the state, you still have such a better experience with the night skies than you do in a lot of other metropolitan destinations that we're at a real advantage. And so I think that some of that is an overlap. But yeah, I think that's something to consider, especially as we think about the audience.
And something that was alluded to earlier in the conversation, the capacity for regenerative tourism. I mean, this can be the anchor of an itinerary, the opportunity to be in a communal space and having this educational and wanderlust opportunity at 10, 11 o'clock at night. But what can you be doing for that landscape, for that community, for that location as the day part proceeding up to that? When I think of some of the stuff that Karen was doing in terms of regenerative itinerary, this seems like there's just immense potential.
Yeah, I've had similar thoughts, Commissioner Youngblood, about the opportunity for kind of citizen science related to those sky quality measurement like devices and other elements that are truly scientific, related to what things we can do to both measure how dark skies are and to continue to take measures to protect them. So yeah, that's something I'm curious about. How can we build that into a visitor experience as well?
Maria?
Yeah, if I could, it's more just a remark, a comment, and it echoes Commissioner Stevenson in terms of just the wow, and just it is an incredible undertaking what you're doing here. And I think that what I really love about it is that it really demonstrates the power of tourism, right? Because you're hitting on so many levels here. You are not only going to help rural communities, you're not only going to help the environment, I hope, with education, but you're doing something that, again, is going to set an example for so many other tourism states, departments to consider beyond just what they're doing on a regular basis, to think bigger. And I think that's just so commendable. And it's a huge project. 4 years is a long time to spend on one project. So just like, wow, I'm just really excited about it. I think the only two other comments I want to make are just concerns about the environment in terms of, you mentioned the responsible visitation, and I think that that's really, really so key. I actually have a history in Iceland before Iceland was Iceland of today, And so while we have these amazing rare moments like we have right now, how to preserve the pristine rural areas while we're educating and doing wonderful things for our economy, like how we do that is so important. So the infrastructure and protecting our lands while we're doing this is the delicate balance. But I know this group is so on top of all of it. So again, I wanted to say congratulations, awesome work. Thank you.
I think this question is probably one for Bob. We heard about having an inventory of dark sky areas. We heard about having a pipeline of dark sky projects, and you emphasized the importance of getting a project across the finish line, which suggests to me we don't quite have a project across the finish line. So am I right about where we are in that continuum? We've got an inventory, we've got projects, but nothing across the finish line. Do we have projects that are close? Do we have more than a project that's close? Can you speak to that?
Well, Jill, Cottonwood Canyon the application is in front of the IDA right now. So, around the rest of the state, I would say yes, there are projects that are either in front of the IDA or very close to doing that. I can also say I was just on a meeting with Crater Lake National Park and the Park Service, the Crater Lake Trust, Bill Thorndike, and Bill from the IDA. And so Crater Lake National Park is really fully engaged in this work as well right now. They're going to move something across very quickly, which is going to be very exciting. As far as the inventories, the reason that it might sound tentative on the Outback about putting it across is that trying to get to that 67% threshold of conforming lights on your inventory for consideration. The agencies are right now submitting letters of support for the light management plan, which says, I'm on board, we're going to do this. And the fact of the matter is that the BLM district here may be at 22% conforming right now. Over the course of the summer, each of the agencies, we've laid out for them a work plan. So some of this isn't actually, we're not able to do it. The agencies actually have to change 13 lights here. They have to retrofit 5 lights there. And so our work with them is one-on-one work with work plans to help them and their staff get to that place where the IDA says, check, you're ready.
Great, thanks for that clarification.
If I can, I'm going to jump in real quick just with a follow-up. And besides, I'm teasing Lucinda because she's convinced I'm never going to call on her. But just as a follow-up to that, do we know? I mean, for example, with the BLM, like you said, we're not at 67%, they're at 20-something. So we know what the delta is there. We probably then know what the actions are that we need to take. Do we have a budget against that as well? Because I'm guessing for the federal agencies, sometimes coming in contact with the dollars is sometimes a problem. It can be a bigger challenge.
Yeah, at this point, I'm happy to say that resource hasn't been the issue that we've been hearing about. It's more actual sourcing. And that's the other piece of this is working with electric co-ops. Most places out, you'll drive past later today, Surprise Power puts the light up. It's the light they've got. It's the light they've had since 1980. And there's no ill will. It's just a matter of what's in the truck. Right? What is able to be sourced? And I think that's that change in consciousness that is also going to be accelerated by doing the work. So it's just easier going forward once we can source the right things. It's not. I'm happy to say it's not resource.
That's great to know. Thanks,
Just
Bob.
a quick anecdote on that that I've heard from the coast is a business actually ended up putting in better lights from a light pollution standpoint on accident because they were actually cheaper than the other type of light. So it's not always more expensive either, which was really interesting to hear.
That's great. Thanks, Hillary.
Let's see if I remember my question after all this time.
Sorry.
No. First, I really want to thank Commissioner Ponzi and Commissioner Stevens for your comments because I have my city council government hat on right now, and I really hope that we also talk to city governments. So I know the city of Coos Bay 2 years ago We changed out all of our lights, and part of it was because of light pollution. But to your point, if you look at the dollars, ultimately it's less cost for the city, and we're helping the environment. So thank you very much. So my hope is that you will definitely reach out to those governments. We've seen it here in small communities in rural Oregon. We all wear a whole bunch of different hats. So making sure again that we're talking to city government, DMOs, Chamber of Commerce's, that would be great. I will also say that on my refrigerator, I have a magnet. It's one of my favorite JFK quotes that says, "One person can make a difference and everyone should try." And this work has started out with just a few people being passionate about a project. And to see where it is today, the minute you gave me this report, I just thought of that magnet, and I thought, wow. And it's helping rural Oregon, and someone who lives in rural Oregon, there are so many opportunities. And so I just thank you for your work. It's very inspirational, and I look forward to you sitting in council chambers in Coos Bay telling me why we should make sure all the lights in the city of Coos Bay are better for the environment.
Thank you. Are Oregon DEQ or the Energy Trust of Oregon partners already, constituents, allies, aware?
Not that I'm aware of. Have you worked with?
Well,
those
the Lake
partners?
County Resource Initiative here, which is that group in Lake County, is very much aware, and they are helping to facilitate some conversations with the power company here as well. I think we're going to see much more engagement on that kicking in is on the community level and resource level, because when you start looking at a bigger community level, it is a lift budget-wise, but there are grants, that are possible through a whole bunch of sources that way. So that needs to be activated is what needs to happen there.
And it was to that end that I consider the Department of Environment, DEQ regulates pollution in our state. And so I wondered if light pollution is a concern of theirs, and if the Energy Trust of Oregon is already managing light bulb replacement and incentive programs, and the objective is to save energy. Is there a way to save energy and manage light pollution simultaneously?
Yeah, I think it's a really good call out, and I think I'm wishing that our partners from the Oregon chapter of the IDA, who have been part of this work group and are doing this work all over the state and are very plugged into the science behind all of this, I'm sure that they, if not already partnering with those entities, have ideas about how we could. So that's a follow-up for me. I have heard, the only kind of anecdote that's coming to mind for me is I've heard in the Columbia Gorge, I believe, I don't remember the details, but a commission out there did adopt light pollution as one of the elements that they were measuring related to overall pollution measurements. So, and that was really because the Oregon IDA was advocating for that. So, yeah, I think there is some precedent that we can definitely look to and see maybe where the other opportunities lie.
Thank you.
Well, and there was a bill in front of the House, in the legislature this year, HB 4146, I forget, or 11112, that was really looking to do legislatively what you were just talking about, not waiting for the DEQ to do it, but to actually legislatively mandate for state agencies, ODOT, Parks and Rec, everybody, to have to actually have a lighting plan. Now, there were some issues with it. I don't know if it actually got through this time, but it will. But that is conversation going on right now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Willett.
Well, the good news for me is you wait long enough and all the great questions have been asked. My follow-up is on the private buy-in. Do you need that with the 67% public? Do you need the private?
The beauty of this is that it does not apply to private landowners.
Okay.
As you'll see today, there's all kinds of in-holdings. 85% of that outback area is public, 15% is private. About 10% of that 15 is the Roaring Springs Ranch out there, but it does not apply to private land holders. It's just agencies.
Great, thanks.
I just want to
Please.
close up one thing back to the community piece that I touched on, you know, and for myself, as you know, Bob, I come from the for-profit world, and so I like to see things move at a faster pace instead of, you know, going through this yearly cycle, okay? And I know how important it is, but I think where I struggle a little, because when I touched on the community and the resources that's needed there, I believe this is something can be kicked off, but at the same time, from a strategic investment standpoint, when I look at the community, their input is so important to know what resources that are needed, because I don't want the communities to be caught in a situation where you got a company like ours that may send 3, 4, or 5 buses load coming through at once, and how do you handle that? That's not a good situation. You know, it's like, from a readiness standpoint of the areas that you targeted, you know, what's that relationship, or what conversation you've had really to where it's going to be a good fit? Because I really think there's value here, and I think it's something you can kick off, but as we move forward, what does that look like? I haven't heard anything in terms of, you know, dollars and cents of what that looks like from a strategic investment standpoint. So that could be another time, but.
Yeah, I'll just, quick response, I'll go to you, because there's a lot in there in our plan. But not to be devil's advocate, but if I was a business person and I've been hearing a lot about this, I think I'm holding my dollars and cents right now, because I'm not, am I going to start the dark sky guiding hotel in Lakeview right now? I'm not sure I would. But with the announcement of a sanctuary, it all of a sudden my dollars and cents become a little more focused, and I have Katie helping me market this new thing. So there is a little bit of wait and see, I think, in the private sector, which I understand. Yep.
Yeah, the only thing that I was going to add is when we did that dark sky destination inventory process, you saw the Google Map slide of that. When we did that market, that's kind of why we did that readiness assessment of, is this destination marketing ready? And we had, yes, go for it. Yellow meant yes, with certain things you need to know. Red was like, not right now. So that was one way we addressed that, because that's I think on a lot of our minds, because some of these places are so undeveloped in many regards, and while they have future potential for sure, we wanted to be able to differentiate between the places that had the infrastructure and kind of the reliable services in place right now versus maybe in the future.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I really appreciate
Commissioner Gremmels.
the presentations today, and truly inspiring, intriguing, and creating journey and experience. And I appreciate the commissioners' questions as well. And as Commissioner Willits shared, there's so many great questions. But as Commissioner Youngblood brought up the tomato experience and thought to his family, and I was struck by Ranger George showing up 3 nights a week to create this journey and guide visitors. And I was struck that there are active shoppers, because I have 2 small specialty stores, and then there are those passive shoppers that visit those stores, that they want the pre-cut cheese. They don't want to stand at the counter. So I was wondering if there's an opportunity, or maybe we're going down this track, for an app. So on the days that Ranger George is off, there's an app that can explain whether it's from Prineville or Sun River, what that visitor will experience from that location, and also appeal to a younger generation that might be a little hesitant approaching a ranger.
Yeah, it's a great point. And you're totally spot on about the wide spectrum of potential dark sky visitors, from, people who plan their whole trip around a specific dark sky place, to, the more passive but interested audience. The work group had, similar, desire around, we called it a GIS map for visitors to kind of get some of that information. And we pointed to there's definitely a lot of inspirational websites and resources that other destinations have pulled together to showcase kind of all of that, both the scientific parts, like how do you figure out which places are dark enough, to what else is there, like what am I experiencing while I'm there, that could kind of guide you on your own. And that's something that I think is very much on the list of potential future projects. It's not currently moving forward right now, but there's certainly a desire for it.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions. Hillary, thanks so much for your work in this space and the presentation. Katie, glad to know you're out there marketing Oregon, one business at a time, according to Bob, but thank you for that. Bob, as always, thanks for your inspiration and your spirit of collaboration. And Jill, thank you very, very much as our representative here today of our sister agency over at Parks and Rec. And I hope your schedule will permit you to join us tonight. So, all right. Thanks you guys very, very much. Commissioner Boyles, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, Commissioners, we are approaching the end of today's meeting. Are there any announcements or comments from the Commission? All right, then, a little bit of housekeeping. Commissioners will be leaving at 4 p.m. from the Best Western for an informal afternoon tour of the region led by Bob Hackett. And then this evening, we will be joined by staff and local industry partners for a dinner and dark sky event at Warner Canyon Ski Hill. So with that, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you all in a bit. We met all public meeting notice requirements provided by